Today we're doing this video wall. There used to be a TV here and a mantle. I always start off by measuring, making sure everything's good to go, finding out where the studs are at. In this case, I found that there's a bathroom on the other side, so framing is going to be a little challenging. Well, not challenging, it's just I have to avoid any kind of accidents that happen behind that wall. And I'm having to frame on the wall versus framing it on the floor and then standing it up, because there's a variation in the measurements just because the floor or the ceiling are not 100% level. Therefore, in order to keep my fireplace level, I have to build it all on the wall. But yeah, since the customers weren't home, so I had to call them and ask them what's on the other side of this wall. And that's where they let me know that the bathroom is there. So there's plumbing, there's electrical, there's vents. There's a lot going on behind this wall that we can't disrupt. Therefore, I use the bottom plate and the top plate to attach the tops and the bottoms. I attached it to the top rafters, so everything is very secure. I got the measurements from the fireplace, and I got my dimensions and ensured that everything that I was going to do was going to fit. And I had to build it that much far off the wall because that's what they wanted. And I had to make sure that I still had enough room for the fireplace. They didn't want it to protrude too far out. Once I got all the measurements done and I put all my studs 16 inches on center, I screwed them in, just one screw on each end for now. Once I screwed them in, then I came back with my nail gun and finished nailing it all in place. As you can see, I measure and check, make sure it always leveled. Because, we forget. I'll write stuff down. I make notes just because there's been times that I don't get the measurement right and then I have to redo it. Here I'm putting the framing for the mantle. Now this mantle had a notch on the top and the bottom of it. So in order to conceal it, I'm installing it first. So therefore, when I put my plywood and the shiplap, the thickness of them together should cover that hole, and it did. Everything worked out good. The customers were very happy about that because they didn't know if they were just going to have a mantle with a hole. And in order for them to save money, they wanted to use the old one, which was in great shape, and I understand. So here I am tying it into the wall, avoiding any kind of damage to what's behind the wall. And since the TV is going to be flush mounted, not recessed, I'm blocking between the studs to make sure when I put on the mount, it's grabbing onto actual wood. If not, I would only have enough space just to put it on one stud, and I like every lag bolt I put on there to really bite into the wood. So we're gonna reinforce it. Like I said, it's still gonna have plywood, it's still gonna have shiplap, it's gonna have enough wood for the lags to bite into, but it's always better to be on the safe side. And what I'm doing here is I'm measuring where it's at, and I'm putting some masking tape on the mantle. And in that masking tape, I write down all my notes of the measurements, how far it is from each end, how far it is from the mantle, how far it is from the ceiling to the bottom, just so when I put the shiplap, I have all my notes and I know where to put the mount. And on top, I'm marking where all the studs are. I put tape on there, and then I put the mark. So when it comes time to put screws and nails, I know where all the markings are at. Like I said, little notes I leave for myself just as a reminder of what I'm doing. So here I put some screws onto this sheathing, and I still come back with my nailer and still put nails on it as well, just to be on the safe side. This mantle is going to take shiplap that goes vertical. And not all the shiplap that I buy is straight. A lot of it, most of it, gets curved, especially when you put it in the home and it's acclimated to the house. It does, when you could pick out the best shiplap you have in the store, and when you get home and a few days later, some pieces are gonna curve on you. So we got a little trick for that later. Here I'm just putting the sheathing all the way around. As you can see, making sure it's all covered. You have to make sure that everything is done in steps. Here I am measuring the TV, which it's something that I do to make sure that my measurements are correct. I don't have to do this step until I put the shiplap, but it's always important to check your work. And there I am making my notes again. I write it all down on the mantle, on tape. A lot of times you'll see a lot of tape all over my workstation, and it's just notes reminding me. I like to use the green tape just because it's bright and it sticks out, and it's there for a reason. So it kind of catches my eye and tells me, like, don't go to the next step until you do this. Most of the work I do myself. And here I'm cutting out a circle. I'm cutting out a square for the outlet. The outlet is going to be recessed and is going to have an axis for, in case I want to run HDMI, USB, any kind of plug. And the reason I made it recessed is just so the TV is going to be flush mounted, and I want a place for all the wires to kind of be hidden back in. Normally I'm used to the outlet being put in the middle, but during this time I realized that the axis or the wires for the TV are in this section right here, like closer to this area. So I wanted it to be just real close. And also, if they want access to it, they just slide the TV to the left and they'll have access to the outlet instead of trying to find it in the middle of the TV or removing the TV due to some plugs. They just slide it and put it back in place. Remember I talked about bows in the wood? A lot of the times I was able to cut out the bow and use the straightest part. Well, in this time I didn't. All I had left was bowed pieces of wood, these panels. So I use this trick where you put a scrap piece of wood on there. You put it onto the tongue and groove. You screw in your piece of wood, and then you put a wedge in between them and try to force it in place. The first time it didn't work, I went and got another bowed piece, and this bowed piece was able to bend further to get it nice and straight and level. If you're not level with these and continue checking your level as you go, you're gonna have a problem at the end. Especially here where you have to line them up to the bottom section. So here I pulled out my laser just to confirm. Usually I just use my large level, and that's pretty handy. But I had a measure. I had a check level from on top of the mantle and below the mantle, and that's where my level came in. They all have to match so it could be seamless. We started on the middle. We didn't start on one end or the other. We started in the middle just so both ends could have the same finish. I mitered the corners because I thought it would look nicer. Mitered, it looked like a seamless piece wrapping around that corner. But the owners didn't want the mitered cut. They wanted the trim look, which it was, whatever they want, that's what they get. And I just wanted to make sure that I showed them the miter cut. See if they like that better, which they did like it, but they already had the trim. They wanted to use it. The whole thing, I had to put a bunch of finishing nails on it to secure the shiplap to it. On some occasions, especially the curved parts, once I would get it level and flat, I would put a screw to hold it in place, and I would countersink that screw so I could put some wood putty, as I'm doing right now, cover all the imperfections in the wood. I'll tell you what, this color really came out good. It was painted before we installed it, just to make sure it had a finished look around the mantle, over the top, on the sides, and it prevents having to paint the whole thing all over again while it's sitting there. This way I just sand, clean, and paint. I don't have to worry too much about cutting. I still tape. I'm not a master painter, so I still tape just to make sure in case I have any accidents. And then I also have touch-up paint for the ceiling and the walls. Accidents happen. But overall, this color came out real good because you can still see the wood texture. It almost looks like a very dark stain. And it's just, I like it. It's kind of like a charcoal gray. Not sure exactly what the name of the color is, but it was a good choice from the customers. They did a good job. And here I'm having to do the same thing. I had a curved piece. Got it all done. Got it all straight. As you can see, I'm wiping it down. Always make sure your job site is clean. Clean your walls. Clean your surfaces before you paint. And now I get to use those measurements that I took 5,000 times to make sure it's centered. And I'm bolting it into the blocking that I put behind it. And that's pretty much it. Once I'm done with this, I do some caulking, the TV mounted, the fireplace, everything went on smooth. And the TV, like I said, it slides to the sides and it tilts in case they wanted access to that wall. And there it is. They were very happy. There you go. Don't forget to like and subscribe.